not, would someone like to make a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
Oh, we haven't gotten that far yet.
Read the regular agenda.
Okay, I'll approve that regular agenda.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Connie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Right. That takes us to our proclamations, commendations, petitions, and announcements. And the August Recycling Award recipient is Stephen McNair at 558th Street North, who will be awarded for his recycling efforts with funding made possible with a grant from Washington County. So thank you very much, Mr. McNair, for your recycling efforts. That takes us to our open forum portion of the meeting, and that's where we set aside 15 minutes for anyone to come forward and to talk about a topic that's not on tonight's agenda. I do not see anyone in the audience that wouldn't be aligned with an agenda item, but okay, I think that we can move on then to tonight's consent agenda, and that's to consider adopting a resolution of items 1 through 12, including the August 5th, 2019 City Council Workshop meeting minutes, the August 5th, 2019 City Council regular meeting minutes, the August payables and receipts, including checks numbers 011407 through 011503, the August building, plumbing, and mechanical permits report, donations for Safety Camp and Night to Unite, a special event application from Anderson's Parent Group for Diggy's Dash Walkathon on October 11, 2019 at Barker's Alps Park, a donation of a park bench from Stephen Schneckenberg in memory of Lucy Schneckenberg, to award a quote to complete a fire hydrant replacement project, a temporary liquor license from the Afton Bayport Lakeland Lions Club for Derby Days on September 20th through 21st, 2019, a special event application from the Boy and Cub Scout Troop number 113 for the pumpkin and wreath sales on September 28th and November 23rd, 2019 at the Village Green Park, a special event application from Rich Dipple for St. Croix Preparatory Academy and Invitational Cross Country Meet at Barker's Alps Park on October 10th, 2019, and to award a quote to replace a culvert on 5th Avenue South. Does anyone on the council have any questions or changes to the consent agenda? If not, would someone like to make a motion to adopt?
I'll make a motion to adopt the September 2019 consent agenda.
Thank you, Connie. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, John. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Oops. Do we need a roll call? we're not allocating any funds this time. Should we do one just?
I'll do it, Mayor, if Madam Mayor.
Okay.
We'll go ahead and do a roll call.
All right.
Mayor St. Orrs?
Yes.
Councilmember
Aye.
Carlson?
Yes.
Councilmember Buckley?
Aye.
Councilmember Hanson?
Aye.
Ayes all.
Great. Okay. That takes us to a public hearing, which we will consider the vacation of a portion of 7th Avenue North adjacent to Croydale. And Matt, would you please come and present?
Madam Mayor, members of council, get this set up so we can view it. So the vacation, we're here to consider the vacation of a portion of 7th Avenue North adjacent to Croydale. In October 2018, the property owner at 798 3rd Street North came to City Hall or proposed adding a deck onto their north side of their house. It butts up against 7th Avenue North, and as many of you, I'm sure, are aware, property lines in city of Bayport don't always line up very well. And so it was discovered that they're essentially right out of their, or the north side of their building is essentially right where their property line is. And so they wouldn't be able to actually, it's really white. Oh, that makes it worse. Okay. Sorry, new technology, right? Okay, so right here is this property, and currently the property line is listed as right here. And so you can't see it on here very well. I don't know why we're getting so much light in there. But the property line essentially also goes down the middle of the road. And so we believe it was a surveying error at some point in time. What was surveyed was not what was put on the ground. And we think that everything for some reason got shifted to the south. The survey lines got shifted to the south for some reason. Not sure why. Don't even care at this point. So what we're proposing to do is move the property line that's in the middle of the road to the Croydale sidewalk, the north side. It would capture the sidewalk, which is what we normally do on a city street, and then move this property line 30 feet to the north right here where this red line is. And so in order to do that, we went to Croydale, we worked with the surveyors, we worked with property owners, and Croydale would allow us to acquire this piece of land in order to run a new property line on the north side, and then we would vacate 30 feet of what is currently platted as 7th Avenue North, which really isn't 7th Avenue North, back to these two property owners right here. And so they would acquire like 30 more feet. Now the hope would be that, can't tell very well on this map, but you do have the map in front of you, is that along this property, this house right here, the property line goes like right through the middle of their house. So the hope would be that this property owner would move their south property line to the north, this property owner would move theirs up, and so on down the line to make sure that the lines match up. Now the city wouldn't be involved in any of that, but we need to just get the process started in order to fix this first. And then everybody else would hopefully fall in line. Most likely what they would do is the same thing that the city was gonna do with Croydale. It would just be a quick claim deed to acquire this property. So the next property owners down, hopefully a quick claim deed would give this area right here to the next property owner. So we're not
worried about the east side there, or
the east side.
well, like that little strip down the east half. You're not talking at all about the west half and those homes. Do they have to move their lines?
The west side isn't as, let's call it, messed up.
Okay.
So their properties aren't too bad, mostly because they're double lots.
Okay.
And so it was never an issue on this side.
Or even
so
across Fifth, it's fine there too.
across Fifth, yep, that really isn't an issue either. And really, we weren't doing anything there. Yeah, it's not at this time. Now, of course, this could happen anywhere throughout Bayport, as we do have some other issues, but we would just fix them as they come up.
Have these other property owners been made aware of this?
So yeah, we've been contacted a couple of times by a couple of these owners, even in the past, that there was discrepancies, but the city has never really gone forward, or it's never came to fruition where they came to the city and say, hey, can you fix this? So this was the first time that the city has been pressed by one of the property owners, mostly because there is a cost to the property owner and to make this work too. So essentially they have to get their area resurveyed after that, in relation to what would be a quick claim deed for the property that they would be not only but giving up but also acquiring. So there will be a cost to each of these property owners that they'll have to pay in order to move those property lines. But that will be on them. So
What if they choose not to?
there is entirely that process. The surveyor are some court procedures because the lines don't line up that would allow them to essentially acquire the land through a court process. But that's on them. We're not gonna take any part in it. We just want to fix the area where we had some control over. So essentially, what'll happen, the whole process is gonna be, the city will acquire the 30 feet from Croydale. The city will vacate the 30 feet on the south side to the 2 property owners. And then the city will also acquire a 10-foot easement, because once we vacate the area on the south side of 7th Avenue, there's a water main that's really close to the new proposed property line. And so we'll have to put an easement in place just because of that. Per Minnesota statute, street vacations must be in the interest of the public to be granted. Given that this realignment essentially fixes a surveying error and it correlates better with what's actually in place, city staff feels that it is serving the interest of the public. As I had mentioned before, an easement will be needed. After all this has been passed, the city will be going to Croydale, which we've already been in talks with and they've already agreed to. At that time, we will acquire the 30 feet from them on the north side. So until that happens, we will hold the public hearing here as is, pass everything that we need to pass, but not record anything at the county until Croydale has signed over their 30 feet of land. Because essentially we don't want to be left with Croydale not signing that over, because then we'd have like a 30-foot road. So so after the public hearing, staff recommends council adopt a resolution vacating a portion of 7th Avenue North right-of-way as described. Open to questions if you have any more.
So currently Croydale's property goes into the street?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
And
And they don't want that and we don't want that. That's why they've agreed to essentially
And there's
allow
only
us to
2
acquire.
homeowners right now that are affected by this, the ones that are just right on 7th Avenue.
Yes, yep.
Okay.
So for the public hearing, they were given notice that this was occurring. So, and one had already requested it, and the other one is in the loop now that it's occurring.
Does that affect, does that affect the 7th Avenue as you go on the west of 5th Street?
It does.
Croydale owns that, but I think there's a plotted road or.
There is, and I don't believe, it does come close to that house that's up on the hill up there, essentially up on 6th Avenue. Potentially it could, but at this point in time, I don't think we're gonna do anything with that. There's a water main that goes up that road, so I don't know how much we would vacate up through there. I think at this time, we would just, if something comes up, we deal with that at this time.
Any other questions from the council? Okay. Well then, I think we're good with that. So we'd open the public hearing and ask anyone to address the council to come forward to the podium and state your name and address and comment for the record. Does anyone want to come forward? Okay. Then, if we don't have anyone that would like to approach the council, then I would like to call for a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Connie. Adam?
Councilmember Buckley,
Aye.
Councilmember Carlson, Councilmember Hanson,
Aye.
Mayor St. Norris.
Aye.
That's all.
So, do we have any other further discussion from the council? Okay. If not, then would someone like to move forward with a resolution?
motion to move to adopt a resolution vacating the portion of plotted on Seventh Avenue North as presented by Matt.
Thank you, John. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Michelle. And do we need another roll call?
We'll go ahead and, yes. Councilmember Carlson?
Aye.
Councilmember Buckley?
Aye.
Councilmember Hanson?
Aye.
Mayor St. Orders?
Aye.
Ayes all.
Excellent. Okay, so then I think that concludes that business, or does it not, Matt? Okay.
Just getting up to the next one.
Just here for the whole show.
Okay, we do not have any unfinished business, so then we're going to move to new business, which our first item is to consider a drainage and utility easement for the vacated portion of 7th Avenue North.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, so pursuant to the vacated portion of 7th Avenue North, as I mentioned previously, there is a water main that runs on the south side of 7th Avenue. Essentially, it will be about 3 feet from the new property line that you just approved with the vacated portion of 7th. So what we normally try and do is get area that we can work on to be able to essentially dig up a water main. And so a 10-foot easement onto essentially what is now the property owner's property is what we're recommending. So attached to your packet is 2 easement agreements that will need to be signed by the property owners. This allows us to essentially have a public utility easement on their property, be able to go on their property for specified items in the agreement. Repair water main mainly is what this one would be for. Unless you have any questions, staff recommends that the City Council adopt a motion approving the agreements with a payment of $1 each to property owner for easements. The property is located at 787 5th Street North and 798 3rd Street North. I'm open to questions.
Any questions regarding this item?
So the width is just the width of that blue line.
10 feet, yep. Yeah, and that's, so the blue is very general. It's just a area, yep.
Any other questions? If not, would someone like to make a motion?
I move to approve drainage and utility easement agreements for 787 5th Street North and 798 3rd Street North as presented.
Thank you, Michelle. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Connie. Adam?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Hanson?
Aye.
Councilmember Carlson?
Aye.
Councilmember Buckley?
Aye.
Mayor St. Orders?
Aye.
Ayes all.
Great. Thank you very much. That takes us to item 2 under new business, and that's to have an update on the purchase of real property for a land and water legacy project and execution of conservation easement consistent with the approved Washington County acquisition agreement. Adam and Andy are to present.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As we work through some of the technical difficulties we're having this evening with some of the new equipment, please bear with us. Staff is excited to report on the next phase, or an update on the Land and Water Legacy project along the St. Croix River that we've been working on for the past.
Is it your microphone or?
I know the
I don't know if they can hear us.
cable channel is working on it.
Okay.
Just so everybody knows, we are on YouTube as well. We are streaming live tonight. If you search for City of Bayport. The city council authorized. Just to give a little bit of background. The city council authorized approve purchase agreements for the acquisition of 11 acres along the St. Croix River using some state and local county grant funding through the Land and Water Legacy Program. And this is going to be a conservation project for a new park area with a potential public boat launch being relocated there away from 4th Avenue. And some of the requirements that were needed to acquire this property included an environmental assessment as well as a archaeological survey. Both the work on the Phase 1 archaeological survey and the environmental assessment have been completed. The environmental assessment didn't find any results, any issues, and the archaeological Phase 1 didn't find anything that would prohibit the city from acquiring the property. There is a portion of old ice company down the river, ice company remains that they do suggest get for historical significant purposes to get a Phase 2 on that portion, but there's no planned improvements in that area. So we will be doing the Phase 2 on that for in the future, but the next step of the acquisition for these properties is to approve a conservation easement, as this is a conservation project. City staff has been working with June Mathewitz from the county and the county staff over the past several weeks to come up with an agreement, conservation easement that the city will grant to Washington County as a part of the conditions for their funding, and it's also required from the DNR. And so we've gone through it with fine-tooth comb, many revisions, and we've come up with a good agreement that the city is comfortable with, and that is included in your packet. There's also a summary page, the 2 pages that has the proposed rights and restrictions of the conservation easement that have been included in your packet. This does in perpetuity put this land into conservation, and so it's a unique opportunity, as I already said. But if the council has any questions, I'm happy to answer those. The allowed uses are what's included in the concept design that staff had come up with in order to apply for the grant funding, which would include a parking lot, the relocation of the boat launch, some nature trails, and scenic overlook on the St. Croix River. And it's as soon as we approve this, then the county, I believe it's in 2 weeks, the county is planned or scheduled to approve it or consider it for approval, and then we can move to set a closing date on the properties and move to the next phase of, after the acquisition.
Andy, did you have anything that you wanted to say?
Mayor and City Council, I don't really have too much more to add. I did have a chance shortly before the packets were finalized here to go over this with Adam, and so it sort of, I think it follows, and I had not had the chance to work on a conservation project in Washington County before, so this is my first glance at this document, and so it's very comprehensive for the things that are going to be in perpetualness, if that's a word, on this land. And so I think the summary here does a really good job of showing you, as the council, what is going to be prohibited, which is a lot of things, because as you know, going into this is a sort of a passive scenic park property. So some of this should be sort of obvious that certain things aren't going to be allowed on the land. And the key point is that if the city moves to maybe do some sort of higher use of the land, that has to be in open dialogue with the county early on, whether it's in year 2 or year 25, in order to keep this conservation easement in place and not have any sort of blowback on that. So I think that's just an obvious point. I just wanted to point out, though, in my review of the document, that's sort of what I zeroed in on. So.
Thank you, Andy. So for the folks that are at home, the proposed rights and restrictions for the conservation easement for the city of Bayport covers such things as, no industrial use, no agricultural use, residential use or development, division of property. It cannot be transferred to other the development rights cannot be transferred to another property. Utilities are restricted, except, as stated by the conservation easement. New rights-of-ways would need to be discussed with the county with prior approval. No new structures are allowed except as described in the reserved rights section, providing for structures and stream bank stabilization, water quality, etc. Trails, there's allowance for new permeable connecting paths. There's no billboards or large signs, just those related to informational purposes. No new roads are allowed without approval. Existing roads may be maintained, and exceptions are allowed for the development of public boat launch and parking area. Mining is prohibited. Commercial use is limited to minimal recreational purposes. The surface, basically the topography or surface of the land, to be altered is prohibited. Its stewardship of natural vegetation is to be maintained and improved. Water, alteration of the shorelines of water bodies and wetlands or actions detrimental to water quality is prohibited. There'll be no dumping of trash or other unsightly materials, and motorized vehicles may be operated with the consent of the city on trails, the road, the parking lot, and the boat launch for designated use, but other motorized vehicles are basically prohibited. So just want to make sure that everyone
Come across
okay.
that description.
So
Madam Mayor?
so you can go into that in detail. I quickly did a summary of the key points just so that people would understand. It's meant to be a relatively passive natural state park, not a state park, but a natural, something that's maintained in its natural environment. Any questions or comments from the council?
Nothing surprised to me based on conversations we'd already had. Very well detailed, and I appreciated the summary as well.
Thank you, Michelle. Anyone else? All right. Would someone like to make a motion on this item?
I move to approve a conservation easement with Washington County for the Land and Water Legacy St. Croix Conservation Initiative project as presented.
Thank you, Michelle. Is there a second?
I will second it.
Thank you, Connie. Do we need to have a roll call?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Hanson.
Aye.
That is all.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The city is part of the Washington County Municipal Water Coalition, which recently completed a study on the long-term sustainability of water resources within the county. To assist the coalition and other metro area cities implement goals and approaches that were sustainable and efficient, as recommended by the study, the Met Council has created a water efficiency grant program, and the program is geared to support efforts to improve water efficiency in the form of a rebate to residential property owners who choose to replace a water usage device that uses substantially less water in their home. Eligible activities include replacement of toilets, washing machines, and irrigation controllers or sprinkler bodies. Staff believes this grant program would not only be a good opportunity to implement some of the goals and approaches specified in that study, but also educate residents on the importance of water conservation and efficiency. Based on the grant criteria, staff also believes Bayport would be a good candidate because we have both an aging housing stock that could benefit from efficiency upgrades for appliances, as well as newer construction with irrigation systems that may not have adequate controllers. The grant application submittal deadline is September 30th, which is quickly approaching, and if we do decide to apply, we should be notified of the grant award by December 2nd. Because of the unknown success rate in our city, staff believes a grant program total of about $6,000, funded 75% by the Met Council and 25% by the city, would be fitting on a trial basis for this program. However, communities are eligible to apply for grants up to $50,000. Disbursement of the city's 25% or $1,500 contribution as recommended by staff would only be required if rebates are requested from property owners. And if grant funds are awarded to the city but not expended, any of the surplus funds would be then returned to Met Council for use in other communities. So with that, staff is recommending a motion to apply for the water efficiency grant through the Met Council with a city contribution of up to $1,500 or as otherwise directed by the council. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Questions from the council?
Just curious about how we would come up with that amount. I mean, how did you decide that that would be a good starting point?
Councilor Hanson, the amount, the amount of $500 a year for 3 years, because we don't have any information or any data on what the interest of the community would be, that is a somewhat arbitrary number. I'm the one who came up with that suggestion. I thought 500. We don't have it budgeted in tonight's proposed preliminary budget because it's over 3 years. If there was interest in the next year, we could start budgeting for it. But because we really don't have any information as far as interest to gauge it on, it's really varied from different community that we've looked at. There's some communities that really take advantage of it, but they're in most cases much larger. We don't have, we're a good, possible location for it, but we started with a small number just to have a low impact on any budget. If there is no interest, it doesn't cost the city anything. The most it would cost over the 3 years is the $1,500 with the proposed amount. The council can increase that or reduce it as they see fit. But I thought $500 a year over the next 3 years. And then if the state does decide to increase it or to renew the program after the 3 years, we can reevaluate and go from there.
And so how does it work for the property owner? What are they have to apply for it and then prove that they've made an improvement, and then how much do they actually get reimbursed for it? Or
Councilmember Hanson, on the very last page of the staff report, there isn't a reporting example for the breakdown of what the Met Council would reimburse versus the city's reimbursement.
Yeah, I get that, but like how, so if I bought a new toilet for, I have no idea how much they cost, I'm just gonna say $200, do I get that whole $200 back, or is it a certain portion of that?
Well, that breakdown right there shows the average cost of
It's the
what a
last page,
fixture,
so like
I
the
was
toilet
just
was
looking at
$168,
this
you'd get $50 back,
Okay,
right?
what the
gotcha.
average fixture would cost, and then this is an example of the average amount that cities are reimbursing per fixture. So I would assume it would look something like this.
Yeah,
And
okay.
it is pretty basic. We are required to submit a work plan along with a grant application that delineates some of these specifics. But it's basically just the resident would bring in a receipt that showed they made the purchase for that device, and then we would reimburse like a rebate.
Okay, so from my example of the toilet, just for people out there, it says that if it costs $168, they would get $50 as a rebate through this program.
Was that set, that was my question, I guess, is that set, or is this kind of just a table example?
Councilmember Carlson, this is an example that's provided by the Met Council, so I'm assuming that this is about the average of what most communities are doing. There have been a lot of other communities that have applied and received funding for the first round of this program. I haven't done, to be honest, I haven't done a lot of research on this yet, because if we weren't interested in applying for the grant, then we wouldn't need to do that. But this is what the Met Council is recommending that we base our rebate program on, so somewhere in the neighborhood of these dollar amounts, which is what we'd be looking at.
Okay, so then if you get the 6,000, so once you've had enough residents, let's see, 30 residents came in and the money was used up, then it's gone, and then the other ones would be out of luck, right? Is that
Right,
what I'm under-
correct.
So kind of a first come, first serve.
Correct.
And are we
Okay.
gonna divvy it across 3 years, so it's $500 the first year, 500 the next year? Or if we use up 1,500 in the first year? I mean, I guess we haven't thought that far ahead.
Yeah, Councilmember Hanson, I think if the program is successful, I think we should go ahead and reimburse people and not limit it per year, because there is an opportunity for other communities that do get funding and they have surplus funds that we can reapply to receive those funds if we would like to do more.
Okay, that's great.
And this is only for residential application only.
Correct.
Good question. I say why not?
Yeah.
It's really, minimal impact to the city, and if it can help save water, which is a wonderful thing.
Is there any restriction to the number of items per household that they could apply for?
Madam Mayor, most of the other communities that have applied for and received funding are limiting it to 2 fixtures per household.
And have we estimated, how much time this will take of staff? Minimal?
Madam Mayor, I'll be the one probably doing the bulk of the work, and excuse me. I think the grant application is pretty straightforward. I have received a couple of examples of a work plan that's also submitted with the grant application. One is very extensive and one is very simple. So I think somewhere in between, I would say a couple of hours to submit for the grant. And then the administration, I think it can be simple as someone bringing in a receipt to City Hall and then reimbursing in that amount. We'll have to talk to finance about how to best work that, but I don't see it, there's not a lot of reporting requirements or additional workload. From what I've heard, I did attend an informational session last week or the week before, and it was very well received by communities. There weren't a lot of restrictions or, as I mentioned, reporting requirements, that it was taking a lot of staff time. Everybody thought it was a very good program.
Thank you for bringing this to us.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the council? If not, would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make-
Oh, go ahead.
No, go for it.
I move to apply for a water efficiency grant through the Metropolitan Council with a total program cost of $6,000, including city contribution of up to $1,500.
Thank you, Michelle. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, John. Adam?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Hanson.
Aye.
Councilmember Buckley.
Aye.
Councilmember Carlson.
Aye.
Mayor Sinors.
Aye.
Ayes all.
That takes us to the presentation of the 2020 budget. Adam?
Can the council hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hopefully the viewers at home can also hear me. So tonight we have our 2020 preliminary budget that I will be presenting. Staff has been working on this for the past several months. We've held a couple workshops. There was one, a general fund workshop. We just lost our video. Not sure if the audio is.
Oh, pretty. On campus.
It's not a soundproof booth, too?
We don't have a fee.
We did test this and there were no issues with the testing. Are they able to see me?
Did this TV turn off?
All of them
They're
are
all-
on.
They're
All the monitors.
It just turned off?
it was on, and then it just went off.
What'd you do?
Your computer?
That wouldn't turn off.
I'm gonna turn off all of them.
There's
Six.
notes. Press input on your remote control.
There you go.
No, it's on.
Please bear with us for a few seconds here.
If we need to just use the overhead.
And you're in your PC. So that should be on number 2. That should be popping up. So pulls up on that. And do you have this set up?
Here we go.
Okay. So do you have this set up as a mirroring in the? Is it set up as a mirroring? 'Cause you
We
just
have the
want-
paper
'cause you just want
copies,
to just
so
mirror,
if
right?
necessary, we use the
Okay, so
overhead,
duplicate
but
displays, that's
right
correct.
now.
It was set up correctly, so.
Yeah. Huh. Okay, then this is in the right input. It's showing up here. That's when you go,
That's how it was, and then it went away.
oh.
So,
You know why we're getting so much feedback?
And
Right.
remember, it's not a soundproof booth.
apologize to the public for the delay. We'll get right to it. I know it is exciting. Staff's been working on this. We've had 2 workshops, one with the general fund, and then this evening we also had a capital improvement plan workshop. So the council's asked several questions, and staff has done more research and answered those. And a couple things that is really high level. Bayport continues to grow. We're just about at, now that we've got Inspiration almost completely built out, with phase 2 coming on next year or later this year. That'll be the final new construction for residential. This last year we had a 12.5% growth in the estimated market value. The Bayport continues to improve the existing properties, and with the new construction, the market value of the city does go up. As you can see, the total market value in the presentation, last year it was $310,655,000. This next year in 2020, it's projected to go up to $349,370,700. The city's fund balances, they continue to stay healthy. We are very responsible with our cash funds, with our money. We've had relatively conservative budgeting over the last decade, and I'll commend the council on that. We've still been able to get things done, make improvements, make investments. Our debt is very minimal for a city our size and a city that does as much as we do. We are a full service city. Our debt, it's at 1.8 million. That's for majority. It's really the only thing is from the fire station that was built in 2015. That's the only debt we have for long-term debt. And as I said, we've made significant improvements and investments in the last couple of years, and we're still maintaining that healthy financial status. In 2020, we're expecting $13,915,200 in new construction, and that is based on what the county is estimating. In 2020, we will receive a slight increase in our local government aid, up from $551,000 to about $605,000. As you may have seen, this last session, Minnesota legislature did increase it. They are trying to increase it back to some previous numbers where it was much higher prior to the recession and the broader financial woes that the country had, including Minnesota. One thing that we've done is we have tried to, so we're not so dependent on the LGA just because we don't want to depend on that. We are trying to tie that to our capital improvements. So we will make adjustments in the capital improvements if our aid is decreased in any significance. Moving on, the fire service contract revenue was increased as well this next year. And part of that includes phasing out the fire relief funds. At one of our earlier workshops, we were looking at completely moving all of the fire relief funds that are currently in our department budget into the unallocated or undesignated funds. But unfortunately, the impact that it would have on our service partners, the other communities, after relooking at it, it's a little too steep. So we're kind of paring that back so we can have, we're having continuing conversations with some of the other communities as to how best make that adjustment in the future. As you know, as the council knows and the community may, we are in a 15-year contract for fire service with the other communities, West Lakeland, Baytown Township, and Oak Park Heights. 2020 will be the 6th year of that agreement. In the year 7, it is per the contract, it's supposed to be reevaluated. So we are working towards that. The 2020 proposed budget the total budget is $3,329,873. And this is a $135,000 increase, which is a 4.23% over 2019. Part of that, a couple significant numbers is, as I said, we are making adjustments to the relief, the Fire Relief Association funding. We are receiving more in revenue from the state, but we have to match that on the expenditure side as well. So there's about a $40,000, it's $39,900 number that is part of this increase. Some of the other increases that you'll see as we go through this some more is we are making an additional capital improvement, capital outlay investment where we're saving money for our capital improvement plan. And we're also reapportioning some of the money from water and sewer into the general fund departments based on where staff is spending its time. We want to make sure that we continually update the apportionment of staff time and where those wage dollars are coming from. Historically, we've been spending some more time in water and sewer, and we're spending a lot more in parks now. So we want to make sure that the budget accurately reflects that. What that does is it takes money out of the enterprise fund and puts it in the general fund. One thing I just want to point out, since 2013, we've only had about 7.26% increase in the total budget. So that's actually very low in the 7 years that we've had since 2013. So it's been consistently, as you'll see here. The operating versus capital expenditures, and I'm sorry, it's a little small to see, but this next graph breaks down. Maybe you can just look at the colors. The orange and the blue are the capital expenses, and the light blue is the operating costs. Over time, the operating costs do increase based on either wage increases, insurance, other contract services that we pay for. But the capital improvements, we want to make sure that those are steady and that we're saving for the future, making those investments for the future spending, so that we don't have a large budget hit in any one year in the future. So we're putting away a little bit each year. And when I say a little bit, it is still a significant amount. Here's a quick organizational chart overview just for the public and the council to give them a refresher. Obviously, the public is all of our bosses. Going down through the chart, you have the city council, and then the staff below that in the various departments. And these are broken up kind of into the buckets, if you will, of the budget funding. So we'll go through some of these very quickly. When it comes to staffing, we currently have 14.5 full-time staff equivalents. That FTE is full-time equivalent. And on this sheet, you'll also see, so I've broken it down by budget department as well as the allocation. And so when you take all of the staff wages and then you allocate it to each of those departments, that's what those little numbers with the allocation. So elections, we don't allocate any staff wages, personnel wages to elections. It's at 0% full-time equivalents and 0% allocation. Obviously, there's staff time that's spent on it. City clerk, assistant administrator Taylor spends a lot of time in elections during election years. And we have election judge training or election judge costs, but those are not part of the personnel costs that are part of the budget. And we don't allocate wages if it doesn't reach a certain threshold. So what we do every year, we try to reallocate to make sure that we're on track with where staff time is being spent. So we have to track that. But we do make adjustments, and if adjustments aren't made, then they can result in larger changes later on, which is kind of what we're doing right now. As you'll see, administration has 4.5 full-time equivalents, but only 1.53 of the wage allocation. This last year, the council did approve adding the half full-time in the office support specialist position, and that's gone actually from last year up to this year. We were at less than 4 full-time equivalents. I want to say it was 3.8, but 2020 does have the 4 full-time in that department. Police department, we have 6 full-time equivalents and 6.1 allocation. There is some non-police staff administrative allocation from the administration department that's allocated in the police department. There's obviously 1 chief, 5 full-time officers, which includes the sergeant, and 2 to 3 part-time officers. Again, these are non-benefited. They're always vary. It's about the equivalent of a half FTE, but we don't count it in. That comes out of a different budget line item, which is part-time staff, as there are no benefits involved. Fire, they are up to 26 paid on-call volunteer firefighters. Our planning and our building and zoning department, the admin staff is what helps that out. Sarah's obviously the city planner, so she handles a lot of that work. That's why there's 1.4 allocation in that department, but there's really no full-time staff that handles just that department. Public Works, we're at 4 full-time equivalents with a 5.44 allocation. This is another large department as far as cost for personnel costs. And that includes the director and 3 maintenance workers. And I'm not going to go through the breakdown of the sub-departments for Public Works, but as you can see, it's split between water, sewer, parks, and streets. The parks last year was at, I believe it was at like 0.43 or just under 0.5. We have increased that to 1.13, which is it's a significant amount, but this is a much more accurate reflection of where the staff time is being spent. So that's where those wages are being spent.
So this doesn't include temporary and part-time?
This is just basically the full-time personnel costs, all the seasonal and the just part-time. Now this does include the administrative office support specialist. That's a half-time, non-benefited. Those come out of the same, the administration department doesn't have a separate line item for that. It could be added, but those are included in here. Whereas Public Works, they're not, and police, they're not. The general fund, if you break it down by percentage, this gives just a chart of where the money is being spent. As you can see, I'm not going to go through each percentage, but public safety that includes police and fire. And hopefully you can see that. I'll have to put it in white font for the viewers at home in December. But they're at 28.2%. It's a significant portion of the budget is public safety. It's also one of the most important things that we do as a city, as a municipality, is to provide police and fire. And so Public Works, it's another, they want to be safe and they want drinking water, their toilets flushed, their streets plowed. These are, significant items. The capital outlay and municipal buildings is not a very large portion of that. The majority of that 20% is the capital outlay. And so again, that's saving for future improvements and projects and equipment, and also investing in that equipment year to year. Just a couple things. The contingency fund, it's at 1.5%, and the miscellaneous and the debt at 2.7. Again, those are very small. Miscellaneous and debt, that also includes the fire relief unallocated funds, undesignated funds, and then the debt is about $30,000 a year for the city. And this shows you where the median valued home, where each dollar goes. Again, same percentages, but if you split it out to dollar, the median valued home, the city tax is, with this proposed budget, is $742.04. Of that, again, I'm not going to go through each amount, but 300 of that 742 is public safety, 122 is public works, and so on. We're saving approximately $150 of every home, of that median valued home, for equipment and future projects, those investments. Going through the departments themselves, our police department, as I said, we're a full service city. We have a 24/7 police department. They do quite a few events during the year. They had a great Night to Unite, great safety camp this year. We also do a couple other small, vacant property monitoring. They're very active. We have a very active police department, and we're small. We only have one on at a time, but we get backup from our neighboring communities, and we have a very good police department. Fire department, we are the oldest all-volunteer fire department in the state. We just had we will be having our 130th coming up in a couple weeks. We had our 131st coming up. We had our 130th last year. I know the members, the fire department, are very proud of that. Again, they have a wonderful tradition. As I said earlier, we serve Oak Park Heights, Baytown Township, and West Lakeland Township. The calls were down last year a little bit, and they are reducing. We've made some tweaks on our calls as to what we respond to try to reduce the number of calls, because that obviously has an added expense to it. We're working with some of the senior housing to reduce those numbers and still make sure that the residents of all of our served communities are getting the service that they need. This year I want to say we're about 20, 30, you'll see it in the fire chief's monthly report, but we're down a little bit year to date. But they too are very busy. We just had we had a house fire, another commercial business up in Oak Park burned this last week. We've had quite a few fires, actual structure fires in the last month. So again, for an all-volunteer force, they're very busy. As I said, we're under a 3-year maximum budget increase for the fire department. 2020 will be in year 6 of our 15-year agreement, and we're working on making sure that those capital costs, the equipment replacement, and the staff costs are being shared fairly by our other partners. The fire hall bond payment, as I alluded to earlier, it's for the city's portion, it's about $30,000 a year. So that's what that annual bond payment is. It's fairly minimal for what we get. Moving on to streets, we have about 18 miles of roadway that the Public Works Department maintains, repairs, and plows. This also includes the seal coating, sidewalk, curb funding, all of our street improvements that we have to do. We do some of those through capital projects, and then we do some just through regular maintenance and improvements. Moving on to parks, we have 4 public parks. We have the Nature Center, we have public spaces, park equipment, quite a bit of city grounds that our Public Works parks maintenance has to take care of. It's, one of the things that I've noticed more than any other year that I've been here is we've had so many positive comments on our parks from people who are reserving them. The Office of Administrative Staff gives me quite a bit of feedback on all the positive comments that we get on all our great parks. This is an area that we are making significant investments in over the next several years. This year we finally, after as we discussed the lakeside playground equipment, we've finally pulled it, decided to make that improvement this year. We got another phase hopefully coming across next year, as well as the Landmark Legacy. Last year we did the Barker's Alps. So the city has made quite a bit of investments in our parks, and will continue to do so. One of the things that we have not done is really allocated any staff time, though, for all the work that we do in our parks over the last several years. So we've shifted, as I alluded to earlier, as I stated earlier, the water and sewer expenses, we've shifted some of those to the Parks Department, so it's a more accurate reflection of where the staff time is being spent. And so the water and sewer budgets will be going down, a minimal reduction there with an increase in the parks, and then with a reimbursement from some of the other departments as well. The administration department, I am the head of the administration department as well as the head of the whole city, not a council member. I'm in charge of preparing the annual budget and presenting it to you, the council. Also included is the capital improvement plan. We went over that tonight. There's quite a bit of projects on that list, both in 2020 and the 21 through 24 years. The Planning, Zoning, and Building Inspections Department, this will be changing over the next couple of years. They handle all the zoning and building code. Sarah will still be here, but Minspect, after Councilor Buckley retired, the city, just to give her a reminder, we hired Minspect to take over the building official duties. And now that the new construction, it will be phasing out over the next year or so, those expenditures will decrease along with the revenues. The city currently retains 25% of the building revenue. The other 75% is paid to the consultant for Minspect. So with that decrease in the projected future building, as that shrinks, as that goes away, the revenue will also decrease, but the expenditures will decrease as well. Moving on to a non-general fund, the library fund, which is collected, half of it's collected through the tax revenue from the levy, but they have not made any requests for an increase. Last year, if you recall, they did have a $10,000 increase, which is matched by private funds. The other half of their annual budget, which is $315,800, is paid by private funding. So again, we are a full service city. We have our own library. Most cities our size do not have its own library, and we are very fortunate to have such a philanthropy be able to assist us in that and a commitment to our community. The water and sewer funds, these are paid by the trunk water fees and your water and sewer bills. And the staff has been talking about doing a utility rate study. We have not done one at this time. We're not proposing any adjustments to the utility rates. The Metropolitan Council's sewer fee did go down this year. If you recall, last year it was a 22% increase. This year it actually went down. It was a decrease of 2%. I know it's kind of like trying to shoot a moving target year to year, but any decrease that doesn't hurt us, I'll be happy to take. Again, just to kind of hammer this home, we're shifting some of the water and sewer funds out of the enterprise fund into the general fund because that's where staff is spending its time. Moving on to specifics of the capital improvement plan. Again, I'm not going to belabor this, but this provides the city with a long-range plan for future projects and equipment purchases. It also allows the city to save some of this money for these. The City Hall IT, we annually replace several computers and servers and other electronics equipment. So that is included, no changes there. Parks Department, we do have some money allocated for potential land water legacy project that was talked about earlier this evening. The next phase after we acquire the project is to work on providing access and removing the structures. And as that goes, right now in the next year, we only have about $150,000 in the CIP planned, but that number is really subject to change as we move forward. The also included was another amount for the phase 2 improvements to the Lakeside Park. I am really excited about that. Just to give a brief update, I hope I don't steal Matt's thunder, but in October we are expecting it's scheduled for the removal of the old equipment and the installation. So we're looking forward to that after the park reservation season's over and before the snow falls. We'll get that going, and then we'll have an open house public comment period to discuss phase 2 and get some feedback on that. The fire department includes next year in 2020, it includes the replacement of Command Vehicle 1. That's actually Chief Eisinger's vehicle. And then, as I mentioned earlier, it shifts an additional $10,000 out of the Fire Relief Association funds from the fire department budget to the unallocated expenditures. Water and Sewer Department, this one it's going to be a big one with the MnDOT project taking place not all next summer, but a significant majority of the summer in 2020. The city's been working with MnDOT, the state, for a couple of years now to plan this project. We'll be making infrastructure improvements at the same time that they are doing the mill and overlay of the roadway. Our capital improvement plan also includes regular fire hydrant maintenance and replacement program, which I know there's been some public comment on, public requests. All the hydrants work, even I think we got one from 1920, early 20s. It's still functioning, but it's time to retire it. The ones that the paint peels on them sometimes, they don't always look the best. We're gonna try to improve the look, but they function, they're all functioning, so don't worry there. Elsewhere in the Public Works Department, we're replacing several smaller items. The lawnmower will be replaced, one of the lawnmowers. The staff's looking at a couple purchases that we think would possibly help, but no decisions have been made. We really haven't done a lot of research, just kind of preliminary looking at them. One would be a Bobcat skid steer and a leaf vacuum to assist with our MS4 compliance. We do have some watershed drainage projects. And again, from the street side, we have the 2020 project coming up. That will also include not just water and sewer, but street lights and accessibility issues. So the proposed general fund levy, as I said, over the last decade, it's been fairly conservative budgeting, and we do have some increased revenue this year, as we have the last couple of years. So, but we're not we obviously have to know that it's not going to last forever. So the proposed general fund levy for this year has a minor increase of $67,881. That's a 5.91% increase, and a portion of that, as I said, is there's about $40,000 in the Fire Relief Association funds, and the changes in the park budgeting. Those are the two major significant areas that account for a significant portion of this. There's about $16,000 in the fire department, or just under $17,000, and the fire department needs to buy new turnout gear next year. So that's about $25,000 that we didn't have last year. That fee will be next year in 2020 when they have to get new turnout gear. What this does to the tax rate, just to give the public an idea again, the city's tax rate is the percentage of the residents' taxpayers' overall tax payment that's allocated just to the city. So of all the taxing authorities that a resident gets on their tax bill, there's the county, the school district, the city, and maybe a couple other small taxing authorities, depending on where you live. In Bayport, I believe we just have the 3, unless there's a special assessment. And the 2020 levy, based on our budget and our proposed levy increase, will be $1,217,344. When you add the 175 from the library, it totals the $1,392,344. And that the overall levy increase is 5.13%. So that actually ends up being a tax rate decrease because of the increased value of the city, the properties in the city. The rate goes down to 31.6, which is, as I said, a 6.9% decrease over last year. What that does dollar-wise for the average tax bills, again, these are the city portion of your tax bill. That I'm not going to go through all of these, but the median value home in Bayport, with the proposed levy, it would be $742, and that's roughly a $25, just under a $25 increase from 2019. And this information will be available on the website with the packets. This information is also available if you go to the county's website, and you can do the tax impact, and you can put in your there's instructions to determine where your value would be. So actually, you probably already get your proposed estimates as well. So I'd like to thank the council for discussing this. I'd like to thank staff, Wanda, Sarah, Matt, all the staff, Laura, everybody who's here tonight and not here. The whole staff helped out on this, but we are making great improvements in the city. We're being very sound, very responsible with the public tax dollars as the fiduciaries, and we're yet still making investments and improvements in the city. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions. One thing I do want to note tonight as part of this is December 2nd will be our the Truth and Taxation hearing, where the public can come and comment on any of the proposed taxes. The proposed levy, and the council will then approve the final levy amount, and if there's any changes, the levy amount can go down, whatever the council approves tonight. That will be certified to the county, but then that can go down, but it can't be raised. So, not that I expect any based on the comments we've had so far from the council, but as I said, with that, I thank you, and I apologize again to the public for having to sit through this super exciting thing with presentation, but hopefully the glitches are done for now. So,
Very good. Thank you, Adam. Is there any other questions from the council?
Very good job, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Adam. Sarah.
Very clean, easy to understand process. We've had minimal meetings this year. It's gone very smoothly, so thank you very much to you and the department heads for all the work. So thank you. Any questions?
Oh, nice
All
job
right.
again.
Okay.
Super. Well, if anyone out in the community has any questions, feel free to contact City Hall or check out the documents on the website. And with that, I think we're ready to move on to a number of resolutions regarding the budget and preliminary approvals for 2020. There are 3 different resolutions, so I don't know who would like to go forward.
I'll move to adopt a resolution establishing the preliminary levy for 2020.
Thank you. Connie, is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Michelle. Adam.
thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Carlson,
Aye.
Councilmember Hanson,
Aye.
Councilmember Buckley,
Aye.
Mayor St. Orrs,
Aye.
that's all.
Second motion?
Okay, I'll move to adopt a resolution establishing the preliminary budget for 2020.
Thank you. Connie, is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Michelle. Adam.
Councilmember Carlson,
Aye.
Councilmember Hanson,
Aye.
Councilmember Buckley,
Aye.
Mayor St. Orrs,
Aye.
that's all.
And the third?
I move to adopt a resolution establishing the capital improvement plan for 2020.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, John. Adam?
Councilmember Hanson.
Aye.
Councilmember Buckley.
Aye.
Councilmember Carlson.
Aye.
Mayor Sinors.
Aye.
Ayes all.
Great. That takes us to our city council liaison reports. Connie? Just a second, we've lost our cameras again, just FYI. But Connie, please proceed.
See, the library board met on August 22nd. It was kind of a short meeting, but they are looking for a new library board member or two. And so if you're interested, fill out an application, get it from City Hall, and return it to Jill, or
Either Jill,
either, okay.
yeah, library or city hall.
Okay. And Jill just wanted to announce that in September, there'll be a new program, will be a meditation class on the 14th at 10:30. During Derby Days, Jill's got a lot of fun things planned for the kids. There's gonna be a medallion hunt at the library where the kids will follow clues, and the prize will be a Kindle Fire. And then there'll be other activities down at Lakeside Park, she said, 3 to 6, I'm not sure what they will be. And then, the library wanted to make a special thank you to 2 young citizens, Archer and Greta. They held a second lemonade stand and gave some money for the library. So Jill wanted to make sure we thank them. And other than that, we will meet again on September 19th at 6 p.m.
Thank you, Connie. John?
No report, but we do have a scheduled planning commission meeting for the look at 2 variances on the 23rd of this month.
Very good. Michelle?
The cable commission has not met since we last met. We will be doing that next Monday. And it's not really my liaison, but I can tell you a little bit about Derby Days. It is going to be even better than ever. We're gonna have the street dance again on Friday night. They've ordered a dunk tank for that night, and we will also have a band called, I think it's Boats and Bridges. And lots of fun activities down. It'll be on Central Avenue by Woody's. I can't remember what time it starts, but look at Facebook or the BCAL website for more info on that. And then Saturday, most of the usual activities will be planned. We'll have the duck derby, the adult medallion hunt. Kids do that too, but and I guess there's 2 Kindle Fires actually at the library for gifts.
Okay.
Yeah, there's one for who wins and one that's just a random drawing from people who participate, which is pretty cool. I think it's $500 prize for whoever gets the medallion.
It is.
The other medallion. And that's, Legion's helping us with that. We plan more activities down at the park. And we will have vintage baseball again this year. And we're gonna have a balloon artist for a while, and we think we're gonna have like a glitter tattoo person, and there'll be a bouncy house, and we're gonna have live music for part of the day, and then we're gonna have a DJ later. And of course the fireworks. So yeah, lots of fun, and ice cream social and food and
Who's gonna go in the dunk tank?
I don't know. Adam? I heard Brittany was up for it. Did you hear
Brittany
this?
was up for it? How about Matt?
No.
Come on, it might be a really hot night.
It was really hot last year, but I don't know.
It was.
This year.
Exceedingly hot.
Yeah, so it's gonna be better than ever, I think. It'll be really fun. So let's hope for good weather.
And that
It's
is
the
a
20th and 21st, so not this weekend, but next weekend.
excellent. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And thanks to the Cable Commission and team for our new cameras and audio and video, and staff for helping out with that as well. You can tell that the color is much better and crisper visuals, so we'll get our little kinks ironed out, but so far, so good. And to be on YouTube and make it more accessible for everyone is a really big step forward for us into this century. So it's wonderful.
So will we be posting that on the website, city website, or how would they
Yeah,
know
well, we
where to
were
go?
just notified this afternoon, so we didn't get a chance, but
Yeah.
the testing did go, did go well, so I was notified that we are on YouTube today. But it will be archived, and so we'll link from our website to our YouTube page. The city of Bayport does have a YouTube channel that will archive our meetings. What this also does is allow us to shoot any other promotional or informational videos, post there as well. So we can, have the mayor out and about town doing, little candid interviews. But in all seriousness, it does allow us to do more communication that way. So we can live stream with the meetings, and then we can have the archive videos available there as well.
Can we put that on our new Facebook page, the
Yes.
link or whatever, so they know it's there?
Yes, we, as I said,
On Facebook?
we just before the workshop today, we
Yeah, I
found
know,
out.
yeah.
Mr. Buckley, I believe, had already shown up for the workshop when I was notified. So, very. He's excited. So, yes.
All right, great. That is big news for those who don't have the local cable channel, that they can now watch the meetings, so, thank you.
Thank you
Cable
very much.
VACD.
So I do not have a report this month, so I'll turn it over to you and the staff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Chief Eisinger is not able to make it tonight. He is recovering from he had foot surgery. He is doing well and should be expected back soon. But with that, I will turn over to Police Chief Eastman.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. I also was watching the YouTube, so that was really neat to be able to do that from my phone. And I agree with Mr. Bell, it'll just be nice to have that early access to communication and getting the information out. So it was neat to be able to do that. Past events, we had our safety camp, very well received, and I want to compliment Mary Goulette for all her hard work with trying to organize a safety camp list of kids, as well as learn her new job, and Chantel as well, just a great team, and hats off to them. It's not easy to get all the applications and the donor memos and everything, and they did an amazing job, so I wanted to thank them. That went very well. Staff did a great job, and it would not be possible without my reserve officers, so compliments to them if any of them are listening, and some of them are local. So thank you. August 6th, we had our National Night Out, or Night to Unite, that we refer to it now. Very well received. We'd started doing our raffles a little bit earlier, and we noticed people kind of dropped off a little bit earlier because of that. So we might extend that a little bit later, and because we rent the Jumpy for the Safety Camp and National Night Out. So the food was pretty much well consumed, and so there was a few leftovers, maybe 5 pizzas. We brought them up to the Department of Corrections, our neighbors who always join us at Safety Camp and National Night Out. So that was nice. They appreciated that. Sergeant Jackson and I attended ALICE training, active shooter response training. We were invited by Dustin Vincent. He's a firefighter, and he also works up there. And that was we were able to attend maybe half of it, but very good information. And there was actually a call out there last week that we responded to. It was a non-issue, but it was something in correlation with that. So it was nice to attend that, and we hope to attend more of those. Upcoming events, as you discussed, Derby Days, the 20th and 21st, we'll have reserves and officers at the street dance, at the duck races down at the park for fireworks, and our volunteers will be there as well. September 26th, we have training. It's a scenario range training. All officers will be there. And then I just want to announce, and it's not on your release, but October 31st, Halloween 4, all the years that I've been here, we've always had an open house. Last year we had an open house, the PD only. This year we're not going to do an open house. I know you were present for that. Kilo was a big factor in that. A lot of people came to see him, and we're going to take a year off. And Jay, who has kids, is going to enjoy it with his kids, and I'm going to enjoy it with my kid that just moved back. And so we will have reserves and officers out all over the quadrants with glow necklaces and candy throughout the city, inspiration and everywhere. So you'll still see us out and about. We're going to make sure it's safe in the city. I want to just touch on our Facebook posts. Go to our Facebook page. We always have good reminders, lost dogs, lost items. You know, we talk about the new distractive law, which we've increased, the hands-free law. We're doing a lot of extra patrols on that. And of course, Anderson Elementary School started, which I had posted this ahead of time, but we walk the kids across the highway whenever we're not on a call. And just be aware that there are a lot of kids crossing. There's approximately 10, and every year that changes a little bit. There's 10 that generally cross right now. So make sure you're always going well under the speed limit and watching for crosswalks all over the city, but specifically by Anderson between 8:15 and then again in the afternoon. I want to talk about the call. The sheet that you got was one page because had I printed it off, it would have been all of these pages. So if you want to, I did post the link for the public data release, which I used to give you all of the interactions that we've had. Let's just talk about when I submitted July, we ended in July 22nd. We had from the 22nd to the 31st, 159 ICRs. And then when I submitted it on August 20th, we had 405. Our total as of to date, when I submitted this on August 20th was 4,168 as of August 20th.
What does ICR stand for?
It's incident, the incident created. So if you go to the public data, which is www.county.washington.mn.us, and it's law enforcement public data, you can click on and you can actually see. It won't give people's addresses, but it might say the 500 block of 5th Avenue or what have you, and it kind of tells you why we were there in case you're wondering. Or you can call me and I can give you whatever is public. So with that, I stand for questions.
That's a lot of calls and incidents. Thank
And
you
some of
very-
are self-initiated if they're traffic stops or enforcement issues as well. So some of them might be calls that we get through dispatch or other are self-initiated. So every time we stop a car, we also create an ICR. So that includes our self-initiated work or our community policing, you know, whether it be safety camp or night to night, we'll pull an ICR for community engagements. So it's a combination. It's broken down on the public data.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And we're saving another tree in that process, so that's
There
good.
you go.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Public Works Director Klein.
Madam Mayor, members of council, Public Works Department finally has seen somewhat of a drop-off in parks usage this weekend. Other than that, it's been pretty consistent with rentals and general use. I could tell this morning that we didn't have as much garbage in the back of the pickup truck that was going around the parks. Like to thank Joanne Sandahl, who was our temporary part-time summer help this summer. She played a big role in keeping the parks maintained, but we're sad to see her go back to her full-time job. We hope that she comes back next year. Moving into the fall season, the department will be, as normal, completing a significant number of tasks: street sweeping, tree trimming, drainage ditch cleanouts, and some asphalt work. We're also doing some, not major projects this year during the fall season, but enough of them. They started the 2nd Avenue North drainage project, if you happen to drive up that way, water quality project in conjunction with the WMO. So that should be completed here in the next maybe week or two. Hydrant painting will actually be occurring next week. The contractor called last week, and so they'll be up here painting the individual hydrants, mostly in downtown and Inspiration. So if you see them, they're just doing their job. Wellhead protection plan, that is being updated by city staff, and it's just to protect the areas around the well that are susceptible to runoff and groundwater contamination. And then finally, the emerald ash borer was verified within town. And so the Department of Ag will be here probably this fall once the leaves fall off to give us a rough idea of how big of area is being affected right now. Eventually, obviously, every ash tree in town will likely be infected, but we're really interested in how many currently are, and then we'll set up essentially a plan to moving forward of either trying to treat some of the trees. Without treatment, emerald ash borer will take the tree in probably about anywhere from 3 to 5 years. So that could be a big cost at some point here coming up too. So
Is that in on residence properties as
Yep,
well, or you just look
so
at
the one
single?
that we saw is on, we were doing some tree trimming, on Fifth Avenue North on the east side, and, the contractor found some of it, so. With that, I'll stand for questions.
Adam, should we have been budgeting for any of the potential impact to trees? Or,
Well, without the plan in place, it really doesn't, it would be something that we would possibly do, for next year. But there really isn't, we don't have any figures as to what the plan is. Because some of the options could even be just doing nothing, that's not what we're probably gonna do, but it varies so much between what the minimum that we would want to do versus the city going and proactively cutting down every tree in the city and every ash tree just to remove it. There may not be any cost next year, or there may be, minimal.
okay.
Madam Mayor, we do have money in the budget too for trees. A lot of times, we'll do like tree replacement, that's planned throughout the year. And so both the streets and parks department, I think, have like $5,000 each. So some of that includes tree removal, contractor tree removal too. So there is, I don't want to say significant, but there's money set aside, even if we want to start working on stuff next summer.
Okay.
So.
Very good. Any other questions for Matt? Thank you. Adam?
Sir?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, as Councilmember Buckley mentioned, the Planning Commission is scheduled to meet on September 23rd to hold 2 public hearings. Excuse me. The first application is a variance to expand an existing legally non-conforming single-family home with an attached single-stall garage and a second-story addition at 466 Peril Creek Drive. The second application is a variance from impervious coverage requirements for a parking lot and stormwater improvement project at Anderson Corporation. Both applications are anticipated to be presented to the City Council at the October 7th meeting. As discussed earlier on tonight's agenda, staff has been busy working on the Land and Water Legacy Project. As mentioned, both the environmental and archaeological studies are complete and do not indicate any known contaminants or artifacts of significance on the property. The next steps include execution of the conservation easement, which was discussed earlier on tonight's agenda, with the county board on September 17th, and then proceeding with scheduling a closing date for the land acquisition. An update will be provided in the coming weeks with more information on that project. Other updates, the next edition of the city newsletter will be ready for print and distributed within the next week. Review of building, zoning, and site plan permits continues to be steady. Per City Council authorization, I'll be working on the grant application and program work plan for the water efficiency grant that we discussed earlier on tonight's agenda within the next week. I'll also be working on the last updates to the comprehensive plan. We haven't talked about that for quite some time, and the Met Council has done an initial review, provided some feedback, and staff's been working to address those comments. So hopefully that'll be wrapped up within the next month or so. And then finally, it seems hard to believe, but I'm already starting to prepare for the 2020 elections and gearing up for that with the county. And I'd like to announce, if anyone is interested in helping staff the polling place for the 2020 elections, please contact us at City Hall. I stand for questions.
Any questions for Sarah? Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mayor, members of the council, my report will be relatively short. We've gone over quite a bit. Obviously, the 2020 budget, we've just been finalizing those figures for this evening. The city council chambers upgrade, there are still a couple items that are outstanding that we're going to be still doing, but those are coming soon. I want to give an update on the waste hauler proposals that the city did an RFP for, the request for proposals. The city received back 3 proposals, so we'll be going through those. One was from our current hauler, and then one was from Waste Management and Highland Sanitation. We had one company decline after initially indicating that they were interested in submitting a proposal, but they changed their minds at the last moment. But staff will be going through those and possibly coming back with the proposal, if it's appropriate, in the next couple months. We're expecting to do it in October. One of the other items that I've been working on is the Union Pacific Railroad partial quiet zone status. I have that in the inventory forms submitted to the Federal Railroad Administration. We're still in the process of adding the pedestrian crosswalk at Lakeside Park parking lot. So that's taking a little bit longer for that to go through, but it's being processed now, so hopefully that'll be relatively quick, short turnaround, and then we can return to the active quiet zone, partial quiet zone from 10 to 7. I was supposed to have my review following this, but due to Councilmember Dahl's absence, unexpected absence this evening, we're going to have to postpone that, or I'd like to postpone it, requesting to postpone it. You guys can evaluate me anytime. But we will not be having the closed session concluding after this meeting. So I don't know if the council, a couple of you have indicated that you're interested in a special meeting just to conduct that. I know Councilmember Dahl he said Wednesdays are not good for him and Mondays are usually better. We don't have a lot of Mondays left in the month. I know Councilmember Buckley is going out of town for a couple weeks, so I will be in touch with you all tomorrow to check your availability, but you can have that in mind. And with that, I stand for questions as well.
Any questions for Adam? No?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions, announcements, comments? I'd like to thank the gentleman for the donation of the bench. That's very nice and generous and greatly appreciated, so thank you very much. And I think that's it. If someone would like to make a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Thank you, Michelle. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Connie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Meeting adjourned.